Hey, I'm Danny from Boss. I'm here to talk to you today about the SY-200. So the SY-200 is the newest in our lineup of SY series pedals. They're guitar synthesizers, man, and synthesizers are fun. There's a lot of things that synthesizing your guitar like this can add to your playing, add to your texture, add to the inspirational nature of a pedal like this. Roland and Boss have a very long history of guitar synths. Usually it's featuring our GK style pickup. The SY line of pedals don't need any sort of special pickup to get a synthesized sound. And that way, there's no latency involved. There's no detriment to your playing. You don't have to worry about being sloppy or miss notes, mistracking. It's all going to react the way a guitar expects to react to you. This is the fourth pedal in the lineup of SY series products. You had the SY-300 first. The SY-300 had 4 foot switches. It had tons of parameters to dial in. It's a real deep hole to dive into to really perfect your synthesized sound. The SY-1000 takes that concept and gives you 3 SY-300s inside the unit, as well as a crazy amount of guitar and effects processing as well, so you can have effects going on your synthesized parts, your guitar parts, whatever. Then you also have the ability to plug a GK pickup into it as well, which gives you the ability to assign those SY sounds per string and also change the tuning of your guitar, use the MIDI output to trigger other synthesizers with MIDI note data. It's got V guitar modeling, and there's so much more into the flagship of our SY line, the SY-1000. Now, if you're a simpleton like me, I want to set these knobs on my pedal board and I want to forget about them. I want to play the guitar, not dive in too deep. So the SY-1 was perfect. It was all the great sounds and latency-free tracking of the SY-300 and the 1000, but there's what you see is what you get. There's 121 sounds that you can scroll through. That's it. But there was one thing people wanted the most, and that is the ability to store presets. So with the SY-200, that's the biggest feature that I'm going to go over today, is if you dial in a really cool sound, you can save it in the SY-200. Now, the SY-200 also has more sounds. It has another external switch, of course. You can assign this switch to a myriad of different functions. There's a little bit more control over the parameters of the synthesized sound, but not a crazy amount more like the SY-300 does. So one of the cooler things about the SY-200 is that while it's still a very simple interface, it does have full MIDI in and out, tempo data, and control change data. So what that's really cool for is that I have this whole pedal board here that totally synergizes together. Each pedal can change patches, it can send tempo data from the looper to the delay, to the modulation, to the synthesizer. That way everything's always copacetic, it's always in time with each other, which is really handy for the arpeggio and sequencer settings inside of the SY-200. So let's take a look, let's get a little beat going. So one of the cool things about the SY-200 is you have a lot more ways to control it externally. If you go into the menu here, you have control functions. You can assign the main button here to do memory up and down, pitch up and down, a hold, etc. You also can control what a 2-button or 1-button foot switch would do in the menus here as well. So you can have memory decrease, pitch up and down, hold, a whole bunch of different parameters. Now another cool function is you do have your expression pedal input as well. What you can do is you have this multi-mode. What multi-mode means is that you set a whole variety of parameters that at the minimum position of your expression pedal, you'll have these settings. And then if you go into the maximum settings here, you can control a variety of different functions that all shift at once towards the maximum. This is kind of cool because a lot of times when you're opening up the filter of a synthesizer, you also want to change the resonance of that filter as well. So here's what that sounds like. So with the SY-200, we added the dual setting on here. Let's hear a couple examples of what that sounds like. So one of the important features of all of our SY products is the ability to have a send and return jack on these units. What that means is that you can route your dry guitar signal out of the unit and not affect it by the synthesizer here. So if you have like distortions or overdrives and you don't want to overdrive the synthesized sounds, put them in the loop of these pedals. That way you'll never have a distorted synthesizer, and then you can have some really cool effects by mixing in your direct level with distortion. Let's check that out. So the SY-200 has a ton of different sounds, but I think I would be remiss to not check out the sound effects bank. That could be good with like overdriven guitar. Let's try it. Sort of like an octave fuzz. I do have a couple of tips for you if you do so choose to get an SY-200. In the system settings, you have a few different options that are super handy. First of all, it's very important to know that there is a guitar mode and a bass mode. So if you're using a bass guitar, switch that mode so that you have the optimal tracking and sound for everything. If you're using an amplifier, or if you're going directly into a mixer or a line level interface, there is an amp effect output and a line effect output on here as well. That just gives you a little bit of a differently tailored EQ for whatever situation you're plugging into. If you want to not use a external foot switch to be able to go up and down easily between your patches, you can set a memory min and a memory max. That way you don't have to cycle through 128 presets by going through all of them and then wait until you get all around. If you have the memory max set to your maximum amount of patches you actually use, then you can very easily cycle through them, unless you are happening to use all 128 presets. If you are using all 128 presets, I commend you. So another hot tip that's totally not self-serving to my job is try it out with the other 200 series pedals. This type of effect, a synthesizer, really takes well to stereo effects like chorus and flange and delay and reverb. It adds such a huge dimension to sounds like a pad and stuff like that. So definitely try out the other 200 series pedals with the SY-200. I guarantee you'll have a good time. So that's the SY-200. It's a wonderfully fun and inspirational tool to have on your pedal board. It works with guitar, it works with bass. There's a whole bunch of wacky and wild things you can do, but there's also some really tasteful things you can do. This is one of those pedals you can have, and it can either blow your hair back like Marty McFly in Back to the Future, or you can do some nice pristine ambient pad work that just makes you feel good inside. And that kind of stuff is the things that we need to hold on to tight, because that's what makes us happy and have fun. And that's the SY-200. Have a great day. Long and McQuaid with the music.